Great. Yeah. Usually we just start off with some introductions.
Okay.
Kind of like a quick
All right. Yeah.
synopsis of your life
Well,
and how
we're
you've
both
ended up
members of the
organizing.
IWW here in Ypsilanti, Michigan, a very small sister city to Ann Arbor. If you know where that is, it's on the map somewhere around here. And we decided we needed a branch podcast for some reason because basically, the pandemic started, and we're two white guys that have microphones, so naturally a podcast erupted from that. And here we are today. I joined the IWW because I got fired for trying to organize, and I was like, wow, bosses are scared of unions. I'm going to look into that more. I don't know about Daric. So.
Yeah, I joined the IWW, about almost a decade ago, I'd say. Mostly because I was kind of new to the labor movement, and I was looking around trying to figure out who was out there organizing, and the answer was not a lot of people, actually. And the IWW, I went to like a labor notes conference down in Detroit, and ran into a couple of wobblies down there who signed me up. And since then, I kind of dove in head first, learned as much as I could about, solidarity organizing, how to talk to your fellow workers, how to get people moving to organize their workplace, and I've been here ever since.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds awesome. You guys have been in the IW a lot longer than I have. I think I'm moving in at about like maybe 8 or 9 months, so I'm still pretty new. I'm trying to get a hold of like everything, and so like as veteran IWW organizers, what are some like IWW 101s that you
Sure.
want
First
to give
off,
people?
get familiar
Just
with the
like if they're
term
dipping their
delegate.
toe
We
into
use it a
the
lot.
union.
And a lot of therefore be it resolved and that kind of thing. Which, someone like me who's kind of stupid and a little punk rock is a little allergic to. That's more Daric's sphere of influence.
I love a good whereas.
Yeah, he's gonna get whereas he'll be it resolved tattooed. That's him. I am a little more on the punk rock side, so I enjoy the direct action of the IWW, which is it's not about coming into your workplace and doing it for you. It's about training you to be the organizer, and then wherever you go, you're going to be troubled. That's my favorite part. So get ready to learn how to do the thing instead of using a union as a service, as Daric says, to get what you want. You are going to have to go get what you want. We're just going to give you the weapons to do that.
That's the best way to put it, I think, is you gotta go out and get it yourself, right? That's what we've been kind of talking about during this entire live, is that we want to support worker-led unions where the workers are the ones doing it, they're the ones running it, they're the ones who are bottom lining all the decision making. And sure, there'll be an organizer in there that will help guide them and help give them kind of like the tools, the strategy, and the know-how on how to make the best possible decisions.
Yeah.
Assuming that's exactly what you guys are also saying, and I like the phrasing that you keep using, which is the second time, because I did do a podcast with you guys, and you use the term.
My religion is punk rock, all right?
So punk side or something like that?
I come from that scene. I've got a tattoo on my leg of Iggy Pop on a cross. Because that Iggy Pop is or punk rock is my religion, right? So like in punk rock, like the punk rock I like, it's very DIY. You set up the shows, you record the record, you get it pressed. You don't wait for somebody to give me permission and like go pick me. You just no, we're gonna get in a van and we're gonna go across the country and we're gonna do it ourselves. And that's very much what I try to bring into the IWW. Is like, don't wait for somebody to come down and bless you from some union. Get the tools together and do it yourself.
You just gotta do it.
Mm-hmm. And how's that been working out for you guys so far? How's your any like campaigns that you might want to share with us?
In the IWW, I guess during the 90s, we were the world headquarters of the IWW for like a year or something like that. But that thing went away. And the IWW disappeared for a while. We've been around since we revived in about 2016. And since that time, we've been very active in the social service industry. We have We have a very active, like, industrial organizing committee called Social Service Workers United that actively attempts to organize social service workers in the Ypsilanti, Washtenaw County area.
It's called SWOO, so let me see you SWOO!
Yeah, so it's also a dance move, apparently. So we've been very active in that space. We also have been very active in the food services. We had for a while an industrial organizing committee called CWA3, which stood for the Service Industry Workers of the Ann Arbor area. But the core organizers of that have kind of moved on, but we still have a number of very active campaigns, both in like local mom and pop shops, as well as a local sort of well-known chain that I'm not going to openly talk about too much right now. But they've been very active, engaged in building momentum on their organizing committees. We've seen some marches on the boss in the last couple of months. The IWW came out in solidarity when some workers marched on the boss at a restaurant, and we all sort of sat in to offer support if we needed to. But most bosses are actually cowards when confronted by workers, and so the public members that were there didn't have to stand up and do a damn thing because the workers had it under control, and that's really what it's there for. We were there to give them backup, but we weren't necessary.
It was really annoying because it was a $20 omelet and it did not taste well, good at all, and so I had to eat this omelet and I was ready to yell at a boss about it, and then we couldn't even yell at the boss about it. It was really a bad thing.
But it was good.
It's interesting. 'Cause I haven't heard a lot of organizing coming from mom and pop shops. At least here in New York, we mostly do like kind of like bigger chains or like I don't know, like just huge restaurants. Not usually like what you would call mom and pop. How is that?
I think
it organizing
the main difference is you have to
like
kind
the
of
chains?
get to that worker who thinks that just because it's one store that the class dynamic isn't there. Like, just because you know your boss doesn't mean that their interests are aligned with yours. You know what I mean? So they could be the nicest owners in the world, but they still want to pay you as little as possible and get the most work out of you. And you still want to do the least amount of work and get paid the most. So, there's always going to be that conflict there. You can be nice about it. You don't always have to, like, burn effigies or whatever. I prefer it. But, I think that's the kind of the hurdle you come with, because you get a couple people who want to organize, but then there are always those, like, workers who are, like, really believe in the whole we're all family thing. And it's like, it's not true. I'm sorry. Like, you could be friends, but I don't know if it's going to work out. There's that mentality.
Yeah.
I do, but I have shit.
I don't know any of my friends that would treat me that way,
Yeah.
It was easy. Like, why would your friends leave you? Like, oh, you do? You gotta get better friends. You gotta get better friends. That's the moral of the story.
But also, I think we have the case where these mom and pop shops, these workers often get turned down by big trade unions because they're too small, right? Like you go to a restaurant that's got 20 to 40 people in it, and you go to a trade union, one of the trade unions that might represent those workers traditionally, and they look at the cost benefit margins, right? And it's just not there for them. So a lot of these workers are kind of used to being left on their own and figuring things out for themselves. The dynamics are very similar in chains, I think, where you have, in this case, you might have owners who are capricious and willing to kind of screw workers over, but you have a very similar dynamic where some workers there are well liked by the boss and maybe get the best tables and maybe get like the best tips and the best shifts, and then you have a group of workers who don't have that relationship with the boss. And so we actually find a lot of restaurants in this area in particular, I don't know how it is elsewhere, but a house divided, and not just between back of house and front of house, but just between favored workers and unfavored workers. And that has made it very difficult in some spaces to organize because the bosses seem to have the right balance necessary to kind of keep that house divided in the long run. And they're strangely effective at it. I don't think on purpose. I don't think that they're like villains twisting their mustaches, plotting how to screw workers. they've just happened to kind of land on the strategy that gives them the pieces they need to keep the house in chaos.
They're accidentally evil.
They're accidentally evil. That is right.
That's definitely a tactic I've seen in person. I know that that's how when I worked at the restaurant. That's how a lot of the longtime staff people were given better shifts, more favorable. They were treated better. They were talked to, and a lot of that is kind of boils down to almost racism at times. I know that I started off as a busser and I ended up becoming a server later on. But the only reason why was because I spoke English and because I could talk to the boss or the manager and the GM a little better than the people who were way better busters and probably would have been really good servers because they knew a lot and they were a lot more hardworking than me. I'll say that. That's what I'm saying. I was a lazy guy. I was like, I'm taking a break, and they're like, what are you doing, man? You can't take a break. I'm like, I can't take a break, and they would power through it. But as much as they worked hard and they were there for a long time, sure they had some, I wouldn't even call it security in their job, but